There's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful fundraising strategy and plan.
People are nervous, right? It's a big deal. We're raising $10 million, even if we're raising $1 or $3 million, depending on the size of the org.
Major gift fundraising is not deadline driven. It really is probably the only type of fundraising, along with planned giving, that is not deadline driven.
AI comes on the scene that's affordable, accessible, that can provide insights and personalization at scale.
That's the first core element of this fundraising engine or funnel, is making sure that the top of your funnel, the beginning of your fundraising process, you are in front of the right people.
What do the people we serve need? And how do we open the door to help them get there?
What happens a lot of times is we get this discomfort or this fear, and our brain tells our body to stop.
We can acquire donors and we can automate everything. And that's where I worry, at least personally, around the perils of AI, that it would remove humans from the interaction.
This is the Intentional Fundraiser podcast.
A development director recently shared with me that for 11 months, she had been planning her organization's spring gala. There's a venue contract, a live auction, a seating chart with more politics in it than her last board meeting, and a budget that's crept close to $40,000. The night finally arrives. The room looks beautiful. The program runs a little long, but the crowd is warm, the applause is real, and everyone agrees it was a lovely evening. 3 weeks later, she pulls the numbers. 2 real major gift conversations came out of that entire night, and both of them were with donors she already had close relationships with before the gala even started. Nobody new stepped forward. No dormant donor re-engaged. The event was lovely. It just didn't move anything. That same spring, a colleague of hers tried something different. Instead of a big reception, she invited 8 donors and 1 program participant to her own home on a Wednesday evening. No stage, no auction, no band. Just a meal, a story, and real conversation, built around one purpose: introducing donors to a new program before it launched publicly. 3 of those 8 donors asked for a follow-up meeting within the week. One of them made the largest gift of her giving history within the month. The whole evening cost less than $200 and took 2 weeks to plan. Welcome to the Intentional Fundraiser podcast. I'm Tammy Zonker, and today we're talking about something I think a lot of us have felt in our gut for years, but haven't had permission to act on, that your biggest event might not be your best major gifts event. I want to be honest about what this episode is and isn't. This isn't a case against galas. Big events still have a place for visibility, for community building, for broad-based stewardship of donors who give at every level. What this episode is about is a specific question. If your goal is deepening a major gift relationship, is a big production really the right tool for that job? Or have we been defaulting to scale because it feels safer than intimacy? By the end of this episode, you'll understand why donors are increasingly drawn to depth over spectacle. You'll have a simple 3-part framework for designing events that genuinely build relationships, and you'll know exactly what to do in the days after an event, so the momentum doesn't quietly disappear. Let's start with why this is happening now, in 2026, and not 5 or 10 years ago. I think there are a few things converging at once. The first is simple event fatigue. Your major donors are being invited to galas, golf outings, and receptions by every organization they support, not just yours. A donor who gives meaningfully to 5 or 6 causes might be attending 20 events a year. At some point, another ballroom with another slideshow stops registering as special. It starts to feel like an obligation they're fulfilling rather than a relationship they're building. The second thing is that donors, especially the ones capable of major gifts, are busier and more protective of their time than ever. A 3-hour gala on a Thursday night is a real cost for someone running a business or sitting on multiple boards. When you ask for 3 hours of someone's evening, you're implicitly promising that those 3 hours will be worth more to them than anything else they could have done instead. A big production often can't deliver on that promise for a donor who's already deeply connected to your mission. A focused, intimate hour can. The third piece, and I think this is the one that matters most, is that donors increasingly want to feel like insiders, not attendees. There's a real difference between being one of 400 people watching a program from a banquet chair and being one of 8 people sitting at a table, hearing a story directly from the person it happened to, then getting to ask that person questions. The intimate version makes a donor feel like they're part of something. The large version, no matter how well produced, can make even a generous donor feel like part of a crowd. I worked with an organization last year that surveyed their major donors directly and asked what they valued most about their engagement with the organization. Almost none of them mentioned the gala. What came up again and again was site visits, small conversations with program staff, and moments where they felt like they understood the mission more deeply than a typical supporter would. That's the signal I want you to sit with. Your major donors are telling you, in their own words when you ask them, that depth is what keeps them close. Spectacle is what keeps a broader base warm. None of this means galas are dead or that you should cancel your event this year. It means it's worth being honest about what a large event is genuinely good for and building something different on purpose for the relationships that matter most to your major gift program. I'll add one more thing here because I don't want this to sound like a critique of anyone who spent months planning a big event. The development director didn't do anything wrong. Her gala served its purpose, community visibility, and stewardship for a broad group of donors. The mistake isn't hosting a gala. The mistake is expecting that same gala to also be your best tool for building your closest relationships. Those are 2 different jobs, and they usually need 2 different kinds of events. So if a big production isn't the tool for deepening major gift relationships, what is? This is where I want to introduce a framework I've been using with clients for the last year. And it's simple on purpose. I call it the 3P framework: purpose, people, program. Purpose comes first, and it's the one most events skip entirely. Before you book a room or send an invitation, answer one question. What is the single outcome you want from this gathering? Not a list of goals. One outcome. Is it introducing a small group of donors to a program before it launches, so they feel like early insiders? Is it deepening the relationship with 5 donors who've been quiet lately? Is it giving your board chair a chance to make a personal ask in a low-pressure setting? Pick one purpose and let it drive every decision after that. The colleagues' dinner worked because her purpose was crystal clear. Introduce a specific group of donors to a new program early. Everything about the evening, the guest list, the story she told, the timing served that one purpose. People is the second P, and it's where most organizations still default to old habits. The instinct is to make the guest list as big as possible because a bigger list feels like more opportunity. I'd push back on that instinct for a relationship building event specifically. A guest list of 8 to 15 people chosen intentionally because they fit the purpose you named will almost always outperform a guest list of 80 people invited because they're on the master mailing list. Ask yourself, who genuinely belongs in this specific room for this specific purpose? If you can't explain in one sentence why someone is invited, they may belong on a different list for a different kind of event. Program is the third P, and it's about restraint as much as design. A relationship building event doesn't need a full agenda packed with speeches, awards, and a slideshow. It needs a tight structure that creates space for real conversation. That might mean a 15-minute story from a program participant, followed by open conversation over a meal. It might mean a site visit with a short, unscripted question and answer session instead of a formal tour script. The goal of the program isn't to fill the time. It's to create 2 or 3 moments where a donor can genuinely connect ask a question, and be heard. Let me walk through a few formats that fit this framework well, because frameworks are only useful once you can picture them. A salon is one of my favorites. Think of it as a curated conversation in someone's home or a small private space, built around a single topic or story with 8 to 12 guests. It works especially well when you have a compelling speaker, a board member, a program participant, sometimes even a donor willing to share their own story of why they give. A site visit is another strong format, especially if your work has anything visual or tangible to show. Seeing a program in action, meeting the people it serves, and having an unscripted conversation afterward tends to create a kind of understanding that no slide deck can replicate. A small virtual roundtable is worth considering too, especially for donors who are geographically spread out or simply hard to get in a room together. 45 minutes on video with 6 or 7 engaged donors and one compelling guest can be more valuable than an hour-long webinar with 200 passive attendees. And peer-hosted gatherings deserve real consideration. When a current donor hosts a small gathering in their own home and personally invites 4 or 5 peers, the credibility of that invitation does work that your organization's invitation alone can't do. People show up differently when a friend asks them to, versus when a nonprofit sends a save the date. I want to be clear that the 3P framework isn't about making events smaller for the sake of being smaller. It's about matching the format to the purpose. Sometimes the purpose genuinely calls for scale, a public celebration, an anniversary, a moment of broad community recognition. But when the purpose is building or deepening a specific major gift relationship, smaller and more intentional almost always wins. Here's a hard truth I've learned over nearly 3 decades in this work. The event itself is rarely where the gift happens. The event creates the opening. What happens in the days after determines whether that opening turns into a real gift or quietly closes back up. I've seen organizations host a genuinely wonderful, well-designed, small gathering, then let 2 or 3 weeks pass before anyone follows up with the donors who attended. By the time that follow-up finally happens, the warmth from the room has faded, and the conversation restarts from a colder place than it needed to. So let's talk about what a real follow-up system looks like, because this is where the actual movement in a major gift relationship happens. The first principle is that your follow-up plan should exist before the event does, not after. When you're building your guest list and your program, also decide right then who is personally responsible for following up with each attendee and within what window. I recommend 48 hours for a personal note or call, not a form thank you email. That window matters because it's short enough that the donor still remembers the specific conversation you had with them, which makes your follow-up feel personal instead of generic. The second principle is that follow-up should reference something specific from the actual conversation, not just express general gratitude for attending. If a donor mentioned during the dinner that she was curious about how the program measures outcomes, your follow-up should reference that exact question and offer to send more information or set up a call with the program director. That level of specificity is what tells a donor you were genuinely listening, not just running through a script. The third principle, and this is where a debrief becomes so valuable, is capturing what happened in the room while it's still fresh. Right after the event, while your team is still together, or on the drive home, do a quick verbal debrief. Who said what? Who seemed most engaged? Who asked a question that revealed real interest or real hesitation? This is a place where artificial intelligence can genuinely help without touching the relationship itself. Record that debrief as a voice memo, run it through a transcription and summary tool, and you'll have a clean set of notes and even draft follow-up messages within minutes. while the details are still accurate instead of reconstructed from memory a week later. The fourth principle is sequencing your follow-up so it builds rather than stalls after one touch. A personal note or call within 48 hours is the first step, not the last one. From there, decide what the next touch looks like for each attendee based on how the first conversation went. For a donor who asked for more information, that might mean a follow-up meeting with your program staff within 2 weeks. For a donor who seemed engaged but non-committal, that might mean a simple, low-pressure invitation to a second small gathering in a few months. The event was never the finish line. It was the on-ramp. I worked with a team that adopted exactly this kind of system after a small salon event last year. Within 48 hours, every attendee received a personal note referencing something specific from the evening. Within 2 weeks, 3 of the 12 attendees had follow-up meetings scheduled. Within the quarter, one of those 3 had made a gift nearly double her previous giving level. None of that happened because the event itself was flashy. It happened because the follow-up system respected the momentum the event created instead of letting it fade. Let's bring this together. Your biggest event and your best major gifts event are often not the same event, and that's all right. A large gala still has real value for visibility and broad stewardship. But when your purpose is deepening a specific major gift relationship, a small, intentional gathering built on purpose, people, and program will almost always outperform a big production, and it will cost you far less in staff time and budget along the way. 3 key takeaways to walk away with. 1, donors increasingly want depth over spectacle, especially your closest donors, because they're tired of being one of hundreds and want to feel like insiders instead. 2, the 3P framework, purpose, people, program, gives you a simple way to design an event that genuinely serves a relationship instead of just filling a room. And 3, the event creates the opening. Your follow-up system built before the event happens and executed within 48 hours is what genuinely turns that opening into a gift. Your challenge this week is straightforward. Pick one gathering, whether it's brand new or an event already on your calendar, and redesign it using the 3P framework. Write down its single purpose. Build a guest list of no more than 15 people who genuinely belong in that room for that purpose. And before you send a single invitation, decide who follows up with whom and within what window once the event is over. The development director's gala wasn't a failure. It just wasn't built to do what she needed it to do for her closest donors. Her colleague's dinner cost $200 and changed one donor's giving history. You don't need a bigger event this year. You need a more focused one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you do. The world needs fundraisers willing to trade spectacle for depth when depth is what will truly move your mission forward. Keep transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world.
The Intentional Fundraiser podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. I'm Trent Thompson, executive producer, CMO, and head of community at Fundraising Transformed and the Modern Institute for Charitable Giving. The Intentional Fundraiser podcast has been recognized by FeedSpot as one of the top 80 fundraising podcasts on the web. This recognition means so much to us, and it wouldn't be possible without your incredible support, encouragement, and thoughtful engagement. Every listen, share, and conversation has helped us grow and reach more passionate fundraisers like you. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to review and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen. For resources mentioned in this episode and to subscribe to our Scaling Major Gifts newsletter, visit fundraisingtransformed.com.